Welcome back to the PMR podcast. My name is Mitch. I'm an alcoholic addict. This is episode 50. Very, very excited for this one.
Episode 50. Excited for this guest today. We've had a great streak of guests. I'm Andrew. I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. And 50 episodes, 50 hours of recordings, many more hours of conversations. It's been a really wonderful ride with you, Mitch, with all the guests we've had, and it's going to be a really special one today. I'm pleased. I'm grateful. I'm honored to welcome Mark to the podcast. Mark is a friend of mine, a man in recovery who went through a similar process as me at Herren Wellness, with over 2 years of living in recovery, in sobriety. He'll go into that difference, I think, a little bit in his story, but excited to have him on. And we talked to Mark before we started, and we could have gone the traditional route of tell his story and we give him feedback, but I think the beauty of Mark's recovery is he's a really introspective guy. And what I learned with my time at treatment with you, Mark, um, is that you can really get into these topics, of recovery. And so before we started, we decided to go with a topic, and something that really, can either hold me back in recovery, or that like kind of gives me a superpower if I know how to deal with it the right way. And I fluctuate back and forth. So topic today, how do we in recovery deal with, people, places, things, situations, that challenge us? So without further ado, I welcome Mark to the pod. Welcome, my friend.
Welcome back to the PMR podcast. Before we get into this week's episode, I wanted to share with you our first partnership with Clean Cause. Clean Cause is a pretty awesome company. They sell yerba mate drinks. The founder is in recovery, and they put 50% of their net profits back into those struggling with addiction and alcoholism. Absolutely love their company, absolutely love their message, and very thankful for them to partner with us. If you're interested in getting some, you go to their website, cleancause.com. All right. When you're checking out, you're going to enter in Mitch20 into the discount code area, and that's going to get you 20% off on these fire drinks. Right now, I got that cherry lime. All right. Enjoy this week.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't know today was going to be 50. I would have got dressed up, but all good, man. Thank you very much. My name is Mark, and I am a drug addict. Thanks for having me. I'm nervous, right? I think this is something that means something to me. I really value the opportunity to get with other recovering drug addicts and alcoholics and talk. It's kind of the foundation of my recovery is communication. I was alone in addiction, and I'm recovering with others, and that's what it's all about to me. So yeah, I mean, look, the topic is how do we deal with challenges, people, places, and things in early recovery or ongoing recovery. And to me, my wheels start spinning, and it's like, where can you go with this? So many different directions, because there's going to be challenges, right? And part of this is acceptance. The first part for me has to be that I'm accepting that life is not going to stop and start at my convenience, and things aren't going to happen on my time frame, and it's not all about my feelings and my wants and my perceived needs. And for me, that was challenging, right? Because I got to treatment with Andrew when I was 37, and I'm 39 now. I have 3 kids. I'm married. I have one daughter. My oldest daughter's from my first marriage. I have a blended family. I had 4 years of clean time in my late 20s, early 30s, but there was no recovery. I had been exposed to some facets of recovery, but I had never lived it. I talked it, gave it some lip service, but never walked the walk. And, when I got to treatment this time, I was broken. I felt alone. I was still defiant, which was kind of weird. I'm all beat up and I still think I got all the answers. And I was still not really open and willing to accepting help or the idea that I needed some help. But for me, where my head goes is that, I had to really, I have to on a daily basis, continue to be humble and remember that, I've had the blessing, the luck, the grace of God to get into recovery. And that means I've got a lot of support, right? I got a forum, I've got an outlet, that I have to work to use, but I've got people in my corner who love me for me. It's not transactional. You know, Anybody who I have the shared experience of addiction and recovery with, I feel like is part of my family, right? Like I can walk into a meeting in anywhere in the world and raise my hand and have people support me when I share. And that's a powerful feeling. And I had to work to let that in, right? I was closed off. I didn't want that. I thought I had all the answers. But for me, that kind of camaraderie, that community, that network that I've built and I've been blessed to build and lucky enough to build over the last couple of years, it gives me a lot of help. I don't know, and there's not a better word for it, help in dealing with life on life's terms. And, one of the biggest obstacles I encountered in early recovery and still to this day are the relationships in my life, the people, right? Places and things, people, places and things, right? Places and things, let's get to, but people, the relationships in our life, they take time to heal. There's scar tissue. There's a lot of resentments that need to be brought to the surface and dealt with, or else they fester. And one of the things I remember, and that stuck with me, is that, I got to go to treatment. I got to go take a time out from life, go to treatment, talk, heal, rest, kind of get away from the pressures of day-to-day life, right? Which we all feel, and which are not more or less for anyone, but they're out there. And I got to take a time out and get the help I needed. Now I go back into quote unquote the real world. My wife, the people I work with, my friends, my family, they didn't get that, right? They didn't get the chance to take a time out, unpack their feelings, work through my issues, So I had to, one of the pieces of advice, I was given a lot of advice, but one of the pieces of advice that I was given when headed back home, and that, it really stuck with me was, try to put myself in someone else's shoes, right? And it's hard to do, right? You can say you do, but if you really do it and you come at a situation, not just from my perspective, but trying to see it kind of from all perspectives, or at least from the other person on the other end of the table's perspective, it makes it a little bit easier not to let them rent space in my head. Because for me, right, one of the things that I struggled with was control, right? Like I wanted to affect change and I wanted things to happen because I thought they should happen. And it's like, things don't happen because Mark wants them. Things happen because they're supposed to, right? And things happen because God's got a plan, or, because together we make them happen. And that was frustrating for me. So one of the things that, I'm going to talk about, and I don't know how people feel about it, but I have to, is my faith and my trust in the process and faith in my higher power, right? Without that, I'm lost, right? These situations baffle us. Like I would not know how to deal with day-to-day life if I didn't have my network, my community, but my higher power in my life. And if I wasn't committed to trusting in the process and realizing that if something doesn't work out as I want it to, because it wasn't supposed to, right? Like things are going to work out as they're supposed to, when they're supposed to. And that to me was a kind of a total 180, because, I was all about me. I don't know if you guys can relate to that, but I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot in a short time. Humility for me has been huge. You know, I can't um I can't go about relationships the same way that I did in active addiction. Because in active addiction, every relationship I had with people, it was self-serving. I was seeing what I could get out of people, how they could help me, or how I could get something over on them, right? And so you mentioned a couple things that really resonate with me, which is, I have to give up control, which involves humility, because like you said, and I think you and I we both saw it in each other in treatment. I mean, giving up control is hard. Like, I didn't want to do it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like I was like, it's in a weird way. It also felt like I was giving up some sort of my masculinity. Like, I'm supposed to take control of situations. I'm supposed to have power over people. And giving that up felt like, I'm already giving up drugs. Like, let me have something here. And so
Well, you
that
know
was
what?
hard.
That's like society putting that shit onto us of like what a man is supposed to be. Like,
Yeah.
and it's all in our heads, but it's perpetuated every day. And it's hard to be weak and be a man, or admit weakness and be a man, and where we're from.
Yeah. And then the thing is like, when I was able to, with a lot of help, was able to start to let some of that control go, and to like almost just humanize myself. Like, hey, like, I'm struggling, I have these fears, I have these thoughts. Like, um then I let, like, people people started to come in, like, into my life, and
Mm-hmm.
in relation, like, my relationship, like, for instance, with, even with, like, Danny, for instance, like, first 2-3 weeks of treatment, I'm like fighting him,
Mm-hmm.
because he's saying all these things, like, it's okay to cry, and it's okay, like you're not feeling your feelings, and I'm like, who is this guy? Like, and when I kind of, like, when I brought that wall down, like, it was the start of a relationship that I would, gratefully say is one of the closest relationships I have with a man. And that's because, like you said, I fought, I kind of had to fight, those, um those masculine, stereotypes, and those societal norms that were coming on to me, and were forced on me, and that I was very willing to accept, because I thought it gave me power. The other thing that you mentioned
But
too.
you know what's a beautiful thing? I was just gonna say it's a beautiful thing when you could raise your hand and say, "I need help" or "I'm struggling," and you watch everybody nod their heads, right? And it's like that
Yeah,
shared experience. You know what I mean?
100%. I was going to say real quick, Andrew, just because that, I work primarily with veterans, and I love that we're talking about this off jump, because like the idea of surrendering or turning it over, to them especially, is like, it's like the opposite of what they've been trained the last, like, their entire life, and they take issue with when I use the word surrender with them, and what the idea of surrender looks like. I've heard from them, no, and we try to change the terminology with them to, turning it over, or, belief in a higher power, stuff like that, because of course, like, surrender is going to be the opposite of what they've been trained to do.
Well, we're built our whole lives. I mean, them times 100, right? In the military and armed forces, but like you're built your whole life to be self-sufficient and independent. And a man doesn't cry, a man doesn't have weakness. Figure it out, push through. Resiliency. And it's like I had to really learn that true strength meant admitting weakness, right? And it was really beneficial for me to watch people who, would come back and were not in treatment, and they were, seemingly had it all together, and they would come back and be like, "I'm struggling," and I'm like, "You can still struggle and succeed at the same time, right? It's never going to be perfect." And I think that perspective helped me so much in dealing with challenging relationships, and it still does, right? It's like I look around and it's like everybody struggles, but we're the lucky ones who can identify, who have been given the tools and the community and the people and the, the blessing to be able to talk about it.
Right. And it's hard too. And Mitch, we've talked about this before too. Like, it's for me, it's very difficult. I'm in a meeting or I'm at Herren or I'm whatever, like with people in the program, and things make sense. Like relations, it just makes sense. Like, we're struggling, I get it. Like, we're going through it. And then dealing with people, almost like you said, Mark, like your family, they didn't go to treatment. They didn't have that pause in their lives to like reset. Like, it's the same with like anyone outside of the program. I'm like, it's hard. It's hard for me to find empathy. Like, when I'm dealing with let's say like a man, in my workplace, like at Herren, maybe a guest who happens to be a dude who comes in fresh off, never been to treatment, never been to AA, and he's wearing that like masculine toughness, strength shell. And I'm trying, and getting through or trying to empathize. It's like, or even somebody like in a freaking Dunkin' Donuts line who's being an asshole. Like, and I'm like, I don't like, you know, it's hard for me to empathize with people who
But
don't follow the program.
let me use that Dunkin' Donuts and that, like, all right. So the guy in the Dunkin' Donuts line, he's being the guy in the Dunkin' Donuts line. Like, you know what he's doing, right?
Oh yeah,
It's long time to order. He's huffing and puffing, whatever he's doing.
He's on the horn.
He's going through his shit. He's going through it, right? He's going through it. And like that identification of like the human condition. And I don't want to get too like existential deep here, but like it's fucking hard to be a grown man, to be a woman, to be an adult, life is challenging. It's beautiful, but it's challenging. And for me acknowledging my struggles and opening up about what hurt me and what my fears were. Andrew, you were great at it. You helped me open up. I watched you get vulnerable, and I'm like, yo, this guy's putting it on the table. And like, you know what they told me? They're like, whatever secrets you keep is what's going to bring you back here, right? So I was like, I got to let this out or else, and I still struggle with it, right? I still do. But when I did that, it kind of made me realize everybody's out there going through their own thing. And if I can bring a little piece of love into this, I did my part.
That was like the biggest flip for me in early recovery and throughout my recovery is when someone was like, because I had this crazy, like ignorant, just like lack of experience, understanding of others, before I got into recovery, and even early, that like when someone was like, dude, everyone's going through something. And I was like, what do you mean? Because I always would like look on the surface level and have an inability to look below that. You see like cookie cutter family, whatever, stuff like that. That was like specifically one of my main things, because I was just raised by my mother and I, no brothers and sisters, a lot of half brothers and half sisters that I found out about at a certain point. But I grew up around like pretty wealthy families that had like mom, dad, brother, sister, dog, nice house, cars, stuff like that.
Hallmark.
Yeah. And I would always look at that and be like, I don't have that. They must be so happy, so a big flip for me was understanding what you're just saying right now, and I felt a part of when I finally understood that everyone else goes through shit every single day, just like me, and the other flip that I have had is talking about the I was gonna, not Starbucks. What we say? Dunkin' Donuts guy. The Dunkin' Donuts guy is that I agree with exactly what you said. I couldn't agree with it more. Is like, that's a person in pain, and understanding that, like whenever I try to, if ever someone lashes out at me, or I see someone lashing out or anything like that, or doing something, that I don't agree with or whatever, or it pisses me off, I have to have that pause at this point in my recovery and be like, that is someone that is really struggling, especially working in recovery the way that, Andrew and I do, and I'm not sure, do you work in recovery?
No, I don't.
No. But just like in those settings, like I agree with Andrew, and this has been like my biggest growth, I think, in the last month that I've been working on, is like working with others and understanding that their recovery is not mine at all. and the steps that I took to get through recovery is the steps that I took. And that's really where it stays. You can't force someone to understand what you want them to understand. That is very much their experience. And the more and more I'm telling myself that and understanding that, I found more grace for others, understanding that, if I can be a loving, safe place, that's really the most I can do at work. I can't do anything other than that. All I can do is be an example of what the 12 steps in AA has done for me. And after that, nothing else is really, I'm not supposed to do anything else other than that.
Well, let me ask you a question. Both of you guys, I guess. Could anybody do it for you before you were ready?
Right.
Like
No.
nobody could. I fought it tooth and nail, because I wasn't ready. And like, I feel like the whole flip, right, that has happened for me that I have to hold on to. I have to struggle every day and work hard to hold on to that gratitude and that keep it in a really, really base level place. Is like I allowed some love in. I let someone help me love me when I couldn't love me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was hard because I felt alone. I was broken. I was empty. And I was, resigned to the fact that I was going to live my life in misery. And then I allowed some love in. And it came through God. It came through people. It came through relationships. But once that came in, it's like, once I feel it, like I've been touched. Like I'm not trying to sound like a preacher here, but like I've got the gift, right? I've been given the gift of recovery, and I can live it, and I can share it, but I can't force it on anyone.
Now here's the thing about what Mitch just said. For me though, like just full disclosure is I can have, it's like it's weird and it's bad probably, but I can have the empathy and the patience and the like almost like the boundary with people in recovery. Let's say guests at Herren I'm working with or my guys that I'm recovery coaching. Like I've been able to work on that where it's like, all right, I got to show, not tell. Like I'm going to practice all these principles. But outside of work, outside of Herren Wellness, outside of the meetings, I'm like, these people are all assholes. That's where my brain goes. Like I see someone acting a certain way, like on the road, someone's driving a certain way, like, and I don't take that, like, it's just, I'm telling on myself, right? I don't take that extra minute and like think about, oh, you know what? That person's probably going through something. Like you said, like they're struggling. Everyone's struggling with something. Like I don't take that extra minute. I can do it easily with people in recovery that I know about, like that I'm there with, that I'm having an experience with. But as soon as you put me in like the quote unquote, like real world, I'm just like, this guy, why is this person acting like that? And it's crazy because I go from that place of like complete empathy to complete self-absorption, like it's self-centeredness, like on a dime. As soon as it's like I'm in the real world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean I do, but you know what I'm thinking? It's like, and it was funny because we were talking to Danny on a text before this, and he threw this word out, and it came to balance, right? And it's like sometimes I think working in recovery is God's work. It's beautiful, but I see people in it. I know, and it's hard, right? It's hard. You have to be plugged in, like you were talking about with the veterans. You're challenging them to overcome things that are ingrained in themselves, and you're trying to get people to see to stay, to commit to until the miracle happens, and all these challenges. And it's like, then when you step away, you got to like decompress a little bit, right? It's like plugging in and then unplugging. So it's like trying to find that balance. I think that's a challenge, for me, not working in recovery, but especially working in recovery. It's like, how do you take care of yourself and make sure that you're filling your cup while constantly kind of trying to give of yourself? And it's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
No, it's hard.
Well, to Andrew, to what you were saying just now, I think when we first talked about the question, my first immediate answer, which has helped me a lot outside of recovery rooms, is like talking with my sponsor, he's telling me, you don't know, try to think about the idea of your higher power working through others, and that means all others. And so like taking experiences outside of the rooms and outside of treatment, just on the road, as you're saying, and like just out and about, is it feasible to look at that as your higher power working through others at all times, and like even like me, I try to really see it that way. And you know there's a lot of grace that comes along with that. It feels like another surrender slash, giving it up. It's not on our plan. I've really bought into that. Like none of this is my plan. This has all been, this is all in my higher power's time. And there's a guy talking in the meeting last night, and he was like, I was working a pretty good program, like 6 months in, and then my grandma died. And why would my higher power, do that to me when I was working such a good program? That's not. And then he said it challenged his belief in a higher power. And I talked about like, tragedy is never going to happen at a good time, and that like, the beautiful part of that is that, and he went back out, and now this guy has like, I think 4 or 5 days. And he was saying that like, he's so grateful to be back. And we were telling him how grateful we were for him to be back as well. And that he has an opportunity now to be there for, his friends and family, where he wasn't the last 2 weeks. He went on like a 2 week bender. And I think he really heard me on like, it's hard to hear. And I told him I was sorry for his loss, obviously, but,
You know
to
what
be,
it is that I started thinking about is like expectations. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
dude,
yeah.
you can't. I'll keep it on the eye. I can't expect that just because I put the drugs down, just
Mhm.
because I'm trying to live a better life, that everything's gonna be all copacetic. Like it's
Right.
not how it works. Like,
Yeah.
you know, recovery gives you a chance. That's it. No guarantees. And I struggle with this all the time, but one of the things that I look at, right? And everyone's got a different bottom, but I truly believe that you could be the highest class alcoholic or the most low bottom drug addict, and we all have the same feelings inside, right? It doesn't matter if you're on the corner shooting dope or in the hotel room drinking martinis. It's this feeling of emptiness, this alone, this feeling of hopelessness that it's just like I don't care if I live or die, and that rock bottom is really to me freeing because it's like it gives me perspective. Like, am I gonna let the Dunkin' back to the Dunkin' Donut guy? Am I gonna let him spin me out? Like I'm living my dream today. Like I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm blessed. And it's look, I can talk about it today because I'm happy and I'm feeling good. But we all have those days, right? I have them a lot where it's like, fuck, I don't want to, I don't know if I can do this today. But I think staying in contact with my higher power and remembering, hey, look, I overcame some pretty deep, dark feelings, right? Like I know I know what I know, and I know what I felt, and I know where my head was at, and I got past it one day at a time, and I'm continuing to get past it. So keeping that in perspective helps me avoid having these expectations that just because I'm good, everyone's good. It doesn't work like that.
No, you're right. You're right, and I don't bring it like right. Like I have a short memory. You know what I mean? Like I don't bring those feelings back as often as I should, like because I don't, and not like I want to feel them again, but I don't remember them. Like I don't recall them to memory, and I think that is an important part of like like Danny mentioned in that text, like balance is knowing and remembering what it was like not maybe the physical whatever, but the all of the feelings. Like
Well,
I
hold
need
on, hold on. Remember the physical for a minute. Think about what it's like not to be able to function without putting drugs or alcohol
true.
in your body. And
It's
like think
true.
about today. And that's why it's like it's a simple program for complicated people. Like think about conceptually what it felt like to be in active addiction. Every day was
Mm,
worse than the last. And it's like to be free of that, what problem? Like really and truly, like what problems do we have that we can't deal with today? Right? Like death happens, life happens. I'm not God, and it's not on my timetable, it's not on my plan. So like once I get over that, because I did think I was God for a while. Once
Mm.
once I realize it's not all about me, what problems? And keeping that in perspective, I think helps me deal with the challenges in early recovery, especially because they come, right? Life comes. The Dunkin' Donut guy, the guy, that guy's getting beat up today. But there's other people out there that challenge us in other relationships and situations. That I feel like if I can just look at it through that lens of like, in the grand scheme of things, this is nothing. The kind of shit I had to overcome just to survive, just to live, right?
Right.
Like, and keeping that in perspective. And it doesn't have to be so like, oh, I had to come from nothing. Like, doesn't matter where you came from. The feelings that I had to overcome, right? The feelings, the emotions, the loneliness and the hopelessness, it gives me strength, right? It gives me strength today because I'm like, I know I can do this. I can't do it by myself, but I know I can do this.
That's kind of why I mentioned, obviously, like you said, yes. I mean, remembering the physical is part of the whole picture. But for me, like the feelings were worse. Like they were worse than, I mean, any physical withdrawal, any feel, obviously the physical dependency, like my body breaking down constantly over the course of years. Like, you know, I I was a physical mess, absolutely, when I arrived at treatment. But worse than that, I was an emotional disaster. I was a and that for me is like the most striking, memory is like where was I emotionally? And that's the biggest difference. Like physically, yes, like I don't have dependence on drugs and alcohol, and my body is functioning at a much higher level. I'm not, it's not deteriorating. I'm not in danger of like having a seizure today, and knock on wood. But the emotional is the scariest, and it kind of made me think. I mean, yes, we've been beating up on the Dunkin' Donuts guy a lot, but I kind of want to like shift, like, because that guy, we don't know that guy. That's just some guy at Dunkin' Donuts, like, or that's just somebody on the road that was, that cut us off, or that, but it's harder with people that we have, history with, like, for me to practice some of this patience, some of this like giving over my power, giving them space. Because like it's kind of weird, like old habits die hard. Like I still want to get shit over on the people I used to get shit over on. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not like it's not like I'm like thinking consciously, like I want to do, it's just like a habit. Like this is how I behave in this relationship, or like even with like saying significant others, like there was a way that I behaved in active addiction. And being in a relationship now, like it's hard for me to like, I tell myself all the time, like, do the opposite of your instinct, Andrew. Like, and that's weird. Like, it's weird to have to tell myself, daily, like, okay, the first thought that comes back and, how to respond to this, like, let's maybe pause and then try to maybe do the exact opposite. Like, and a lot of the times that's the healthy alternative. Like, it's so I don't know, dealing with people that I love or like that I have a pre-existing relationship with, that to me is harder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I mean, for me, I had to start looking at, let's just use our parents, right? Mom, dad, whomever. I had to start looking at them as people, though, right? Flaws and all. Like, my mom is a wife. She was a girlfriend. She's a friend. She's all these different things. And so that allowed me to kind of understand her as a person and not just look at her as a mother, right? And all that's wrapped into. My wife, the same thing, right? I had to look at her and the people who I had the closest relationships with were the hardest to repair. The people who I care about the most. I hurt the most, and I felt like they had hurt me the most, or I had my own issues. So it's one of these things where I think in early recovery, it's hard. I couldn't make any decisions on my own. I needed help. I needed to come to a consensus, right? And I needed to communicate. And in order to do that, I had to raise my hand and ask for help, right? Because it wasn't knocking on my door, and I had to be willing to take the help that came. So, as I was presented with opportunities, so one of my most challenging relationships was with my ex-wife. So we have a daughter. She's 8. We are night and day, apples and oranges. I say up, she says down, black and white, whatever opposites you want to kind of talk about. But, we have this little girl that, we both want what's best for her. We both think different things are best for her. And, I had to come at this from a totally different place, and it wasn't easy. It's still not easy. It's a challenge relationship, and it always will be. But I had to come at it from, hey, look, she's got her feelings, and I've got mine, and just because I think mine are right doesn't mean they are, right? I had to I had to really be humble and say, this isn't all about me. It's not all about what I want, even if what I want is good or what I think is right or will be beneficial for my daughter or people around me. I gotta be willing to listen. And you're right, Andrew. It's like I could listen to a guy in AA, I could listen to a guy in a meeting, I could listen to people, other addicts, and give me suggestions. But listening to someone who's not in the program and taking their opinion or their direction, it's a whole different ballgame,
Well, that's what we have a system in place. I've been told that forgiveness or an amends is just a perspective change, like you were saying, in terms of seeing all sides of others, especially like through an inventory process of looking at our part much more in depth, and understanding how we may have played a bigger role in something that we previously thought was something done unto us. I think that's something that's really helped me a lot is fully understanding through my inventory process, at least like my resentments, fully understanding the whole picture, seeing where my family members came from, their whole life experience, trying to really know and understand that to the best of my abilities from where I'm sitting, really helps me to understand, their actions and their words much more.
And it helps me not spin out when
Right.
it doesn't go my way, right?
Right.
Because I mean, does everything go your way? It doesn't always go my way,
No.
So it helps me to kind of keep it in perspective and like not blow it up. And like sometimes the move is no move, right? Sometimes the best answer to a situation is just chill, just back off a little bit, take that pause, like you said, and allow things to run their course. I was a big fight fire with fire guy, right? Like I needed to get my point across. You don't know how smart I am. Like I got all the answers, and it was like, slow down, shut up, and like listen a little bit before you know, go 60 miles an hour. So I feel like that pause and that communication and that process helped me deal with a lot of challenges. It still does to this day, right? Things tend to work themselves out if I don't, make a massacre out of them. That's what I've found.
Thinking about places, because that's the next part of this whole saying from the big book or the program. Like, this was a hard one for me. I mean, it's tied in with people, but like avoiding, for me, in early recovery, at least, it was avoiding places. Like it wasn't dealing with, it wasn't like coming to terms with or making my peace with. And like, it's kind of weird. I don't know what your guys' experience was, but like, I didn't realize how much real estate in my head that like certain places like that I had been or that I had used at or that like just held, held memories and experiences that made me want to use, how how much real estate that shit had in my head. Like I thought all my problems were with people. And you know, like when I saw this for the first time, people, places, things, situations, I thought, you know, it's all about people, like places, like I'm fine, I could go anywhere, do anything, like. And you know, and Mark and Mitch, you both kind of know my story. Like my last place I used drugs was in Nantucket. I lived there, whatever. It was a disaster. And you know, I was sober about a year and a quarter, and I went out there again. Because I was ready, I was healed, I still had a massive ego about, listen, I'm 24 years old, I'm a year sober, I'm ready to take on the world. Like there's no, you know, and my sponsor was like, I don't know if that's a great idea, like to go back to, you know, this place that, you know, is a little bit of like a old battlefield for you. And you know, I went back out there, and it was, you know, I didn't like the word at the time, but it was triggering for me. I felt things that I hadn't felt in over a year, um being in some of those places again. And I was uncomfortable. I was really, really uncomfortable. And I was lucky that I had resources like people to call, and prayer, and you know, a couple different
But let
kind of
me ask you,
escapes.
did you go there with a plan? I think so,
Absolutely.
right?
That's the only reason I didn't pick up, because it was overwhelming. It was all overwhelming.
Right.
Like, but like you said, like I had a plan, and I think somebody told me early on, it was Zach told me early on, he said, you can go anywhere and do anything as long as you have an exit strategy. Like as long as you have an extraction plan. And I think
Mm.
that was really, really important for me to hear, you know?
Yeah, I heard something similar, and I also heard avoid avoidable circumstances. I like ironed that one into my brain, especially getting sober and going back to college and back onto a college campus. And there's a reason that like a lot of my using and a lot of my using friends were in Baltimore, and there's a reason that I think sitting where I'm sitting, like 6.5 years sober, I think I've been back to Baltimore in that area like 3 or 4 times in 6 years. Like, not because you know, I don't live in fear of it, but I do respect it. That's for sure. I definitely fucking respect it. And every time I've been back there, I think I'll go for like a week or so, you know, see some of my good buddies that have supported me from jump, you know, and pretty much stay in the same area. And I know where I shouldn't go, that's for sure. And you just, as long as we live in that respect, you know, I think that's a safer place to be. But I love the idea of the exit strategy too, you know. That's super
It's like a
important.
healthy fear, right?
100%.
Yeah. And it's like, you know what I'm thinking? I'm laughing because all these sayings that are like emblazed in our brains, avoid
Yeah.
avoidable circumstances. I like that. You can go anywhere with an extraction. Like people said, there's so, you know, and that's why you got to be in it to win it. Like if you're not, you know, they say meeting makers make it. Keep coming. All, you know, you got to be here. You got to be here. You got to be in it. You got to talk. You got to listen. And you know, I had this like terminally unique, you know, kind of feeling. Like I was special, and I found my home here. I connected with people that I connected with, and it made me realize, like, you know, I'm not a special drug addict. I'm a drug addict, and
Hmm.
if I don't follow the suggestions, I will not. I'm not gonna make it.
Hmm.
You know, and the places thing is challenging, right? Because not everybody gets to come out of treatment and make a fresh start.
Yep.
You know, in fact, probably most don't, right? Most people have obligations, family, friends. They don't have the means to pick up and move to Maui because, you know, they got clean, you know. So going back into the lines, then, so to speak,
Mm.
of where we used is going to be unavoidable for most. But, you know, they say if you're spiritually fit, right, you can now, I believe that, but I'm not going to put it to test. I'm not going to sit in front of a pile of drugs and try to challenge myself. I also believe if you go by the swimming pool, you're eventually going to go swimming. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think small doses, you know, for me, like, you know, and places can be weddings, they can be family events,
Yeah.
they can be summer houses, they can be your old childhood bedroom. I mean, I got high everywhere. So, it was going to be hard for me to avoid certain places, but entirely. But I think what Mitch said made a lot of sense to me. Is like some places I just don't need to be. There's nothing there for me, right? So whether it's a city, whether it's a block, whether it's someone's house, whether it's a basement, you know, sometimes you just know what goes on there. And while I feel lucky, strong, and blessed today, I have that healthy fear Mitch was talking about.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean,
Other big thing is picking up the phone, right? Like you go
Yeah.
to these places, you got to pick up, you got to call, you got to talk about it. It's like if you don't let it out, it'll eat me alive, right? Like I got to go and I got to text and I got to call and I can't pretend like I'm just going to be all good on my own.
Yeah.
That,
Like I had just real quick, I had a scary thought, like, and it was real. Like, I think it was like a year ago or something. A couple of my buddies, we all linked up in Chicago. It was like three of us. We hadn't seen each other in like a year. We're gonna do like a boys' weekend, whatever you want to call it. And I didn't talk to my sponsor while I was there. I was just like in the moment with them. They all went out drinking. I was with them. They went out. We did all this stuff, bro. We did a ton of stuff in like 4 days. The third night I went to bed and they had this dab pen that they were all hitting the whole time. And I didn't know how much I was watching that fucking pen until the third night when they went to sleep. I had a thought, you know, if they're all asleep, I could probably go down and hit that. And that was fucking really scary. I mean, like I had a real, I had started developing a plan at like 5 years sober to wait for them to all fall asleep. And I was going to go hit the dab pen. And I called my sponsor, just like I just had like it was real, bro. Like it was not like a passing thought. I was like ready to go downstairs and do it. And that would like really kind of snap me out. And there was, I had been pushing part of my program away at that point for a little bit too. So it makes sense that wouldn't happen at that time like that. But it is kind of crazy how, I mean, it is always right there. It is always, I talked about this on the last episode. I had a buddy with 7 years just relapsed on fentanyl. It is always right there. It doesn't matter what you have time wise. It really doesn't. When I was in recovery, a woman came in with 26 years. She got a DUI, had a fight. She told me she had a fight with her daughter on the phone. She had an idea to go to the gas station. She went to the gas station, bought a bottle of wine, bought another bottle of wine, finished those both in her car, got in a car accident, DUI, 26 years. She's back in rehab. And I'm really thankful for her meeting her at that point because I couldn't fathom 30 days, much less someone with 26 years coming back into treatment. So it's those stories that we really have to remember. And then nothing, and like you were saying, the gift is given in the morning. I was going to say, like, you wake up in the morning, the gift has been given. If you really, like you were saying, buy into that perspective, it is fucking all gravy on top after that.
I agree, man. It's like what we have is an opportunity, and that's all you can ask for, right? It's an opportunity to enjoy life, to be happy, to be healthy, to be present, and keeping it in that gratitude, in that perspective, in that frame of mind keeps me from letting little things spin me out. But that's not to say I don't have to work at it. It's easy to stray from that path. And it's like one of the blessings and one of the things that I've seen over the last 2 years, I've had people in my life who are in recovery, have people die and stay sober. I've had people get divorced and stay sober. I've had people lose their jobs and stay sober. Andrew can attest to some of the things that have gone on with some of the people that we're connected to up at Herren. And it's like, there's a guy that we know, Jeremy St. John, right? Tell him about JSJ, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, this is a situation in which every time I see him, it reminds me I have no excuse like to complain. This is a guy who 4 years into recovery had a stroke, like a very damaging stroke. It pretty much paralyzed, very severely handicapped the right side of his body. His speech, his his day-to-day function was decimated. Um, his brain remained intact, like he's still Jeremy, but he's slowed down. He can't do a lot of things without help. It's and 4 years sober, this happened to him. And for me, like hearing his story, right? I'm like, I don't know how in the hell I would get out of the pit of self-pity enough to not use drugs and alcohol. Like
No,
just
but he's
say
got
fuck
10
it.
years. He's got 10 years sober now. 10 years.
It's been 6 years since he's got 10 years clean.
And he's
And
killing it. He's happy. He's enjoying life and like, going through life. But that to me is what it's all about. And that's why it's like the challenges that are going to present themselves in early recovery and ongoing recovery in life, they're going to be there, right? They're unavoidable. But if I'm centered in a place of gratitude, of humility, and I'm connected, right? I got a chance, right? And I don't have to let these things spin me out and let me go down to a deep dark path and blow up, my opportunity, my chance.
yeah. And just like I was just kind of thinking about it, and I was thinking about something you said, Mark, about if I'm doing the right things, like, and especially really for me, it comes down to talking to people. Like if I'm talking to people, if I have open lines of communication with other alcoholics and drug addicts, then like realistically, like I can do anything. Like I can, and this, like I was thinking about you saying that. I'm thinking about, all right, like a year sober or whatever. I went to Nantucket. I wasn't talking to people. I was pretty disconnected from Herren, pretty disconnected from the program. And I had, those type of thoughts that Mitch had in Chicago, like a couple nights there. I was like, you know what? Like I was sleeping like 12 feet from a mini fridge with all sorts of alcohol. And I was like, I could do whatever the hell I want right now, and probably no one would notice. Like those thoughts came up, right? I was there for 4 days, and those thoughts came up versus 3 months ago, right? And my program has changed a lot. 2 years sober. I'm working at Herren. I'm connected. We got that sober fantasy group. I'm talking to people. I'm listening to people. Like, and I go on a trip, an 8-day trip to this island in the Caribbean called South Caicos, where I also did a lot of drugs and have a lot of jackpots, and and I didn't think about using once. Well, whatever, like I say that as in, like, yes, like drugs are on my mind probably once a day as a normal drug addict, but like I didn't have the urge to use drugs. Admit you're laughing, but that's true.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I don't know why that was so funny, but I was like, when you said that, I was like, yeah, I do.
Once a day? All right. We'll give you once a day.
well, that's a blanket statement
I
for
live in California, bro. It smells like weed when I step outside. Like,
yeah, man.
I'm in a
I
hot
hear
LZ.
you. But that's the difference, is like I'm talking to people, I have open lines of communication, and then I go to this place that I think I could never have gone back to, and I go for 8 days, and I'm like, I feel good. I felt like I could do it, and I came back and I wasn't spun out, and because I was talking to people as I was feeling these things. You know what I mean? It's
But that's
exactly
what
what
I
you
think.
said.
That's what I think for me, the biggest thing that I did differently was I didn't come out of treatment and think I had it. I had it. I knew that was the beginning of my journey, right? And I needed to keep it close and keep connected. And I also was blessed, and we talked about her before we got started today with a life coach. Her name was Liz, and she is special in my heart forever. I will always be grateful. She imparted so much wisdom and perspective and helped me reach into parts of me that I didn't think I could reach into. But one of the things she kind of pounded into my head was like, it's not going to go according to your plan. Things are going to go haywire, right? They are going to go south. You're going to have fights with your wife. You're going to have fights with your parents. You're going to have stressful days. Do not expect sunshine and roses. You know, I used to say tits and champagne, but we'll say sunshine and roses for now. So don't expect things to be perfect, because it's not going to be. And if you're going to set yourself up for disaster, you know, you're going to set yourself up for disaster if you think things are going to just be all hunky-dory. And that expectation part for me really helped me, because when things went south, when I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, when I was having a rough day, it wasn't like, what's going on? This is not working. It's like, no. This is what's supposed to happen. And this is a test of my faith. And I have to trust the process. If I get through this, and each time I got through a little challenge, whether it was a bad day, whether it was a bad day at work, whether it was a fight with my parents, fight with the wife, whatever it was, I got a little bit stronger. And I was able to look back on that experience the next time it happened and say, hey, look, I got through that and I was all right. I could get through this. And, you know, part of it for me was, and is, don't blow it up, right? Don't make it worse than it has to be. And I think, you know, that was a challenge, but it's also been a key to my 2 years of sobriety.
100%. Yeah. What do you, I've been tossing this, I was going back and forth with a buddy yesterday. How do you got, and we've been throwing a lot of bumper stickers out today. How do you feel about having an expectation leads to resentment? Having an expectation of another person will always lead to a resentment. Do you think that's a fair statement?
Where I'll second that times 100. I think that is so true. I mean, that to me, and it's not just with people, it's with life. Like, I thought that because of who I was supposed to have this life or that life and be this guy and that. Like, whoa, slow down. You know, life is life. I'm just a person. I'm good, bad, and ugly, right? I'm everything. And that to me has been another big shift, is that, like, I had this expectation that I was going to be perfect, things were going to be perfect, and that didn't work out. Then I had this expectation of I'm a bad guy. Things are going to be bad. They're not going to get better. It's like, whoa, they're not going to be perfect and they're not going to be terrible. They're going to be somewhere in the middle. Yep. So I like that bumper sticker. I'll put that on my car.
100%. Yeah. I was talking to, we had I don't know if I can say that. I had a coworker that was saying, you know, that it's good to put expectations on others. And we had like a high level back and forth on that. This is not a person that's part of a 12-step program, you know, kind of went to school for a lot of that. And, you know, was kind of saying there's a good balance to put expectations on others. And that's a beautiful part of my job too, is like, I get to interact with like some pretty highly accredited doctors and stuff like that. And like, come at it from my experience, which is a 12-step experience. And they come at it from, you know, I'm sure they have 12-step experience, but they're not 12-stepping. So it is an interesting
you live it. You live it.
Yeah.
They can write about it, but you live it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, and I'll play devil's advocate for a moment.
Okay.
With expectation is, it's like I'm a human being, right? With if I'm in a relationship, or if I'm in a partnership, or like, there are things that I need, and that's just the truth. Like, in a relationship, whether it's a friend or a girlfriend or a wife, or like, you know, I don't have to expect the world from somebody, or that they're going to be agreeable in every way and follow every wish that I have. But like, I think maybe what this guy was arguing with you, and the only way that I could see it have any truth, like that it could be healthy to have expectation, is like, if I don't have any expectation about anything, then like I almost feel like that affects my self-respect. Like, do I respect myself enough to need something, like to have a need from somebody, and if it's not met, to have to make a change, maybe not get resentful and angry, but like I need to have, do I need to have the self-respect
Well, no,
to, you know
I
what I
agree
mean?
with you. I agree. You don't have to accept things that are unacceptable to you, but an expectation, I think, is dangerous because in early recovery, especially when things don't go our way, that could be triggering. That could set
Right.
us off. So I think expectations are dangerous. I get what you're saying, where it's like you want to set boundaries. You want to have, your needs, wants, and thoughts communicated clearly. And if someone violates them, then you don't need to accept that. But expecting it, I think, is dangerous because it sets you up. People are people, things are going to happen, and you can't control things. So it's like having an expectation that someone's going to do this. What happens then when they don't? And if life has taught us anything, it's that it's not a straight line.
Mhm.
Mm, mm.
It's an interesting word, and I like the juxtaposition of expectation and need. That's interesting. Like both kind of infer um something coming back to you, I guess. Like both infer your like self-will, but I think I'm trying to figure it out right now on the fly, really, like what's the big difference between those two.
Well, I mean, I think Mark kind of said it beautifully just now, is like, is
Yeah,
it, there's one, in one way it's an expectation, and it's, that's me just expecting that it's going to be a certain way, versus communicating my thoughts
sure.
and my emotions and maybe my desires in this relationship or whatever, and not having them met, and then not having to accept that, but it not being a thing that I expected, so I'm not resentful about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's the big difference, and I don't know. I credit Mark with that, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to get back to your coworker, the doctor, and see what he or she says. They might have some more insight into that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I think yeah, I mean it's fun. I mean, especially when it comes to like mental health and addiction and understanding the brain, like medically, we are not, we haven't figured anything out. So I'm like I've always kind of nerded out and wanted to really get into and pursue like higher levels of degrees in terms of like the brain and addiction and what's really going on in there, because
It's wild, right?
it's
Because
all
it's like
it's all messed up in there for sure, but I want to get in there. Um,
that's above my pay grade.
Same.
Well
Uh,
above my pay grade.
but Mark, man, it's been absolutely beautiful. I couldn't have thought of like a better episode 50. It was sick to see us just kind of like bounce off of each other for an hour straight. I like went real fast. That was pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
dude. I appreciate you guys having me on. I mean, I, I, I don't know if we stuck to topic, but do we ever? Right? Like a topic leads into a topic, and then me and Andrew have some deep conversations. Andrew gets deep,
I
right?
believe
So
that.
I
Listen,
always said in treatment, I'm like, that's a guy I would have liked to smoke weed with, but
listen,
maybe in the next life.
we shoot from the hip here, but usually it lands pretty well.
Yeah.
And I do it. It's we haven't chopped it up like this in a while. And it does bring me back, like sitting by the fire with Dan Powers.
Well, he can
Like,
get deep too. He can get real
he
deep.
can get deep, Mitch.
I know he
Believe it or
can. Yes,
not.
he can.
Believe it or not,
Look at
Dan
Mitch.
can
Mitch
get
is
deep.
like,
I think we
that's
should.
it. Wrap it up.
I will do Dan. We should we got to get Dan back
We'll
on.
get Dan on. We'll get Dan Brunel on, and then you'll be stuck on this podcast for 4 hours.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you guys letting me come in and kick it for a little. I love talking recovery. I agree with you, Mitch. It's like so wild, but it's a beautiful thing. And I'm gonna take away from this that life is life, but we're blessed, right, to be with each other, to have friends and family in recovery that we can share this with. And for me, I can't say it enough. I used and I was alone, even in a crowded room of people. But today I know I'm not. So
Hmm. I love that.
God for that.
I couldn't. I completely agree. Yeah, the community. It was great to meet you. Great to talk with you. I'm sure we'll stay in touch. It's dope. When I said this when Chris came on, it's just so cool to see the community that Herren has. At some point, I really do. I joked about it last week, but I would love to go out there and like, see the spot, see the community, go to some of the meetings that you guys do.
Dude,
'Cause it
it's
sounds like it's
amazing.
like, yeah, it's real special that you guys are
Special
capturing.
place.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a beautiful thing that we can get a guy in Los Angeles, a guy in New Jersey, a guy up in Boston, up on a Zoom and talk recovery for an hour.
Unbelievable.
It's a beautiful thing. So I thank you, Mark, for taking the time. And episode 50, it's a special one, and it's a great one for me to reflect on, man. Just 50 hours of chopping it up with you. I'm a lucky guy. And I can't wait for the next 50, man. It's a special thing that we got going on.
Amen to that, bro. Couldn't have.
I'm coming back at 100.
Okay,
I love
bet.
it.
Oh
You're
yeah,
in.
let's lock that in, baby. Coming back at 100.
Listen, man, this is a beautiful thing, and the how it came together. Andrew gave me some of the background. It's really, really organic and natural, and just like great. So
Yeah.
I'm blessed to be part of it. I'm nothing but love for you guys.
Thank you, man. Thank you to both of you guys. Love you guys too. Everyone listening, this has been episode 50. Thank you if you've been here from episode 1 to episode 50, wherever you stopped by. It's been awesome. We're coming up on that 1 year. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful day, and we will keep coming back.
Thanks, guys.